الله صلى الله عليك وآلك يا رسول الله. أشهد أن عليا أمير المؤمنين ولي الله. أشهد أن عليا أمير المؤمنين وأولاده المعصومين حجج الله عليهم صلوات الله وسلامه. حي على الصلاة، حي على الصلاة، حي على الفلاح، حي على الفلاح، حي على خير العمل، حي على خير العمل. الله أكبر، الله أكبر، لا إله إلا الله، لا إله إلا الله. وصل اللهم على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين. والفاتحة إلى أرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات مع الصلاة على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله الذي كان موجودا قبل حدوث الأشياء ويبقى بعد فناء الأشياء، تفرد بالأولية والقدم ووصم كل شيء ما عداه بالفناء والعدم، كما قال عز شانه كل شيء هالك إلا وجهه وكل نفس ذائقة الموت، وقال كل من عليها فان ويبقى وجه ربك ذو الجلال والإكرام. سبحان من لا يخفى عليه اختلاف النيات ولا يعزب عنه ماس العباد في الخلوات. سبحان الله الذي منه خلقة العباد وإليه المعاد. فمن يعمل مثقال ذرة خيرا يره ومن يعمل مثقال ذرة شرا يره. نشهد أن لا إله إلا هو الملك الذي لا ينازع في ملكه ولا يضاد في حكمه، يعذب من يشاء بما يشاء كيف يشاء ويرحم من يشاء بما يشاء كيف يشاء. تعذيبه المسيئين عدل وعفوه تفضل. ونشهد أن محمدا سيد المرسلين وخير المبشرين والمنذرين صلى الله عليه وآله الهداة المهديين. من ركب سفينتهم نجا واهتدى ومن تخلف عنها ضل فغرق وهوى. أوصيكم عباد الله بالاعتصام بالتقوى فإنه حبل متين وعروة وثقى. فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى وقوله الحق وهو أصدق القائلين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ولا تقولن لشيء إني فاعل ذلك غدا إلا أن يشاء الله واذكر ربك إذا نسيت وقل عسى أن يهديني ربي لأقرب من هذا رشدا. صدق الله العلي العظيم. اللهم صل. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. I begin by advising myself and all of you to practice the piety and taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as is the best of provisions. The verse that I recited for you, or the verses that I recited for you, are from Surah Kahf, chapter 18, ayat number 23 and 24. One of those ayat of Quran which seems like it's a conversation between Allah and His abd and His servants. And seems like a very casual conversation that you might have with your children for that matter. And I'll read the translation and you'll see what it means. وَلَا تَقُولَنَّ لِشَيْءٍ إِنِّي فَاعِلٌ ذَلِكَ غَدًا. Do not say about anything, I will indeed do it tomorrow, without adding, if Allah wills. Recall your Lord. If you forget to do something, say, I hope that my Lord will provide me with better guidance. Again, the concept of procrastination is something which is being negated over here. that as soon as you have something that you can do or perform something which is right there in front of you and you unnecessarily delay it, it is something which is disliked, especially if it's an action which requires it to be done right away, especially if it's an action which is considered to be amongst the khairat, the good deeds. One should not delay in performing those amal. And with that said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes us say this sentence, if Allah wills, Ayn yasha Allah, or what we say in our own language, insha'Allah. Unfortunately, the concept of insha'Allah might have a very negative connotation, but insha'Allah is when you are musammam, meaning you are 100% sure about doing something. When you have made up your mind that this is something which you want to perform, that's when you say insha'Allah. Not when you're doubtful of doing something. Unfortunately, when we say insha'Allah, that is what it means, that it is probably not going to happen. I'll come to your house insha'Allah one day, meaning what? I'm never coming to your house. So unfortunately, that's the negative connotation that has developed in our culture. But that's not what Quran meant this ayat for it to be. وَلَا تَقُولَنَّ لِشَيْءٍ إِنِّي فَاعِلٌ ذَلِكَ غَدًا إِلَّا أَن يَشَاءَ اللَّهُ. That if you want to say something, if you want to do something, do it tomorrow, unless you say insha'Allah. And therefore, if Allah wills, if God wills, unfortunately, as I mentioned, a lot of time we put our will in front of the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's where this whole discussion begins. Tonight, what I wanted to talk about, that first of this month of Dhul Qa'dah marks the wiladat basa'adat of the sister of our 8th Imam and the daughter of our 7th Imam, Bibi Masuma Qum, Salamullahi alayha. Didn't talk about it last night because of the Isa al-Sawab Majlis, so I thought it would be befitting that we discuss a little bit about her. One of the names that she's given is Masuma, although there are only 14 Masumin, and there isn't a 15th one in that regard, but nonetheless, she is given the title of Masuma because we believe that there are two types of Ismat and Taharat, and she was at that second level of Ismat al-Taharat, which is easily attainable for even you and I. And if you try and do riyadat for some time, you can easily avoid things which are, of course, muharramat, and even get to the level to avoid things which are makruhat, and you will be at that level as well. But of course, there are many family members of the household of Ahlul Bayt which were not masum with the title, but they were still considered to be those who stayed away from any questionable actions. So she was, one of the titles that she was given was Ma'asuma, Tahira, meaning pure, Hamida, meaning commendable, Barra, someone who's righteous and not just ordinary righteous, someone who's excessively righteous, Rashida, as this ayat at the end said, لِأَقْرَبَ مِنْ هَذَا رَشَدًا. I hope that my Lord will provide me better guidance. She is referred to as Rashida, someone who used to provide guidance. Remember the story when a group of people came to the house of our 7th Imam, Imam Musa ibn Ja'far al-Qadim alayhi salatu wasalam, asking for their hajat al-shar'i to go ahead and question, as you would approach the imams that were at that time. And they found out that Imam was not available, he was traveling. And so they were disappointed that they had done all the travel. And it's not like, just make a phone call and then make an appointment. They showed up, Imam wasn't there, and they didn't know when Imam will return. So the question was asked as to what is the purpose of your visit. So we had brought some questions for Imam. So they said, well, give the questions and come back in the evening and take them. They gave the questions, and then in the evening they came back and they got all the answers that they needed, and they went away. As they were leaving the city, they ran into 7th Imam, who said, when they ran into Imam, they said, Imam, we had come to see you, mashallah, we finally get to do your ziyarat. But the reason we had come was to go ahead and ask you some questions, but alhamdulillah, we got the answers from your house. Imam said, let me look at the answers. What is the answers that have been given to you? Imam looked at the answers and he said, these are the answers that are given by my daughter, Masuma Qum, Fatima Masuma, that was her name. she's the one who gave these answers. May her father be ransomed and sacrificed over her. So this is an Imam Ma'asum taking pride in his daughter to the extent that he's saying, may he be fida on his daughter. So this is the reason she's given this title of Rashida. She's also referred to as Taqiyya, Radiyya. And you see the similarity between the titles that she possesses as well as the titles that Janab Fatmatul Zahra, Salamullahi alayha, used to possess. So there's a story in regards to this. Marhum Ayatollah Syed Mahmud Marashi Najafi, father of Ayatollah Shahabuddin Marashi Najafi, the one who is buried in Qom, and you've visited his library, Marashi. And there's a madrasa also in his name, Marashiya. Nonetheless, he was, of course, an alim of his time, and he did this wazifa for 40 days so that he can find the exact location of the grave of Janab Sayyidah. After the 40th day, when he finished this wazifa that he was doing, these athkar that he was reciting every single day, and he was doing at certain time, and of course these are things which are related to ulum irfan, he did it with precise measure. On the 40th day, he sees in his dream fifth Imam, Imam Muhammad Baqir alayhi salatu wasalam, who said to him, Alayka bi karimati Ahlul Bayt. Upon you is to do the ziyarat of Karima Ahlul Bayt. He said, Karima Ahlul Bayt, that means that is one of the titles of Janab Masuma Qum Salamullah alayha. He said, Alayka bi karimati Ahlul Bayt. He said, Imam, I'm looking for the grave of Janab Sayyidah, which has been hidden for us for all these years. We don't know the exact location of it. Imam said, in the time of ghaibat of Imam, upon you is to do the ziyarat of Masuma Qum instead of doing the ziyarat of Janab Sayyidah, because you don't know where her grave is, and that is the same maqam as far as doing the ziyarat of Masuma Qum is concerned. You want the thawab of doing the ziyarat of Fatmatul Zahra, you'll get the same reward by visiting the grave of Masuma Qum. So from there we understand the importance of this personality, this lady. 5 things that I wanted to mention here today for you from the character of Janabe Masuma Qum. Now, of course, we hear a great deal about her travel, that she was born in the year 173. There's debate over her birth as well, 173 or 183. Majority say, well, it has to be between 173 and 183. In fact, it has to be at least 4 years before 183. Why? Because 7th Imam was in prison, and he died in prison in the year of 183. And so he's been in prison for 4 straight years. So therefore, Janab Masuma Qum must have born prior to that. So 173 is the year of her birth, and marking the first day of the month of Dhul Qada is the day of her birth. Nonetheless, it is mentioned that she spent all this time, 10 years with her father, and then, of course, remaining years under the imamat of our 8th Imam, until Imam was then moved to or brought to Marv, present-day Mashhad, where Imam's burial site is, by Mamun Rashid. And this is where Imam bid farewell to his family. Imam said, if you want to cry over my death, do it now. I haven't died yet. But if you want to weep and shed tears over me, you won't get to see me. Because this is it. This is bidding farewell to you. This is in the year 200 after Hijrah. Imam's Shahadat is in the year 203. But nonetheless, we see that Imam ﷺ is bidding farewell to his family 3 years prior and saying, bidding farewell in a sense, pray and cry for me if you want to right now, because you will not get this chance when I die in that particular time. That means Imam also gave one prophecy. None of you will be able to visit me. None of you will be successful in coming in seeing me. But Janab Masuma Qum, with the love that she had for her brother, she took upon this journey. The difference between the travels of 8th Imam and his sister is this. 8th Imam was brought by Abbasi Hukumat. So they brought him from a route which was longer and which was away from the followers of Ahlul Bayt. So they didn't take Imam through Kufa. They didn't take Imam through Qum and Save. Instead, they went around where there was less of a population of the followers of Maktaba Ahlul Bayt. Therefore, they didn't want any sort of upheaval. They didn't want anyone protesting or any of those things to come about. So they brought Imam like that. On the contrary, when Masuma Qum travels, she chooses the route where there's majority are the followers of Ahlul Bayt. And therefore she goes through Kufa and she passes by Saweh, which is near Qum, and that's where she falls sick. And then she was brought into the city of Qum. She spends 17 days in the city of Qum, and that's where her shahadat takes place, or her wafat takes place. And we know with Ijaz, our 8th Imam and our 9th Imam came to perform the last rituals of this lady. But we've heard about this history and we've known, and there's not more than beyond this history of hers and all that. But the real crux of what we can understand from her personalities, 5 points that I want to leave you with today. Number 1, love for family and absolute following. That is something that you find in not all of the family members, but there were people from the children of 6th Imam who went away, who were, started a path of their own, for example. Primarily how? Because there were people who would go ahead and instigate. They would go ahead and tell them that you are the son of Imam and you are also very knowledgeable and you can also start your own following, and so on and so forth. Today, in the world as well, many influential people, by virtue of them being influential, their children are already automatically influential. The family, the royal family of United Kingdom, the children and the grandchildren are automatically royal, and so they're known, and they're leaders, born leaders, if you want to call it. They can start and they'll have a large following. So this is something where you see that in the time of Imams as well was a big problem. A lot of these people were not infallible, but because virtue of being in the house of Imam, they're now being approached by people in the society to go ahead and grab them, and sometimes to take them away from the path of Imam, give them importance on their own so that they could deviate and they could go ahead and start some sort of deviation and distraction in the religion of Maktab Ahlul Bayt. So at that point, having all that is still to be able to show your loyalty and to still be able to show your love for your family and stand by, even though you yourself are already at a maqam, which she did possess herself, is something which is an attribute without any other attributes, that the love for the family and the complete following and tabi'iyat toward her family. Number 2, she was a genuine scholar. She was danishmand-e waqi'i. Why? We mentioned this as well in that story that we had recited, that how people came and asked questions. Forget that story. That is something which children of Ahlul Bayt were able to do. Look at the barakat. Now, there are certain things that are done by a person themselves. But then there are certain things which are the repercussions and the consequences of those individuals. Look at the barakat of this lady who, I don't want to say anything accidentally, she came to the city known as Qum. Just like Sayyid al-Shuhada, who was martyred in Karbala, the Khak of Karbala became Khak-e-Shifa. Janabe Masuma Qum spent 17 days in the city of Qum, and what is Qum today? It is the place of marja'iyat. It is the maqam where the ulum Muhammadu ala Muhammad flourished, right? This is where you have the greatest of the scholars came about in the past, so many centuries, right? And so this is the barakat of this lady. And I'll mention some hadith to back it up by our Imam Masum alayhi salatu wasalam. So her second attribute is that she was a genuine scholar. Qum is established with the blessings of her presence only for a couple of weeks. And look at it today. Qum became the beacon of light as far as Islamic studies are concerned, produced some of the biggest of the scholars of time. And that's why Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wa alihi wasallam has said, Talibul ilmi bain al-juhal kal-hayy bain al-amwat. Someone who is seeking knowledge amongst the ignorant is like the one who is alive amongst the dead. So if there's, you're amongst the dead bodies in a morgue, all the dead bodies are there, 100 dead bodies in the morgue, and you're the only person alive. It's like, talib ilm is the same way amongst those who are literally alive. They are considered johal, the ignorant ones. Look at the comparison that Rasulullah does. He says, إِذَا عَلِمَ. But things get difficult for this alim as well. إِذَا عَلِمَ الْعَالِمُ فَلَمْ يَعْمَلْ كَانَ كَالْمِصْبَاحِ يُضِيءُ لِلنَّاسِ وَيُهْرِقُ نَفْسَهُ. But on the contrary, if a scholar who does not act upon his knowledge is like a niche, providing light for the people but burning himself. What does the niche do? It's providing light for everyone that is in the surrounding. People are able to see because of this candle. But what is this candle doing to itself? Slowly and gradually burning itself. Rasulullah said, if you don't act on your own knowledge, then you're just like that niche which is doing that. So famous event we mentioned regarding how she had been able to answer the question. One question that is surrounding her is in regards to how she remained unmarried. And that is the case in reference to many of the daughters of our seventh. Our seventh Imam was Kathirul Awlad. It is mentioned in Riwayat to have 36, 37 children. With that, many of them were daughters. Majority of them remained unmarried. Was it something that Imam was trying to leave an example that remaining celibate and not marrying is something which is a tradition of him? No, that is not the case. No riwayat were brought in that era of seventh Imam which produce and which talk about that marrying is something which should be neglected. No, if anything, Islam emphasizes a great deal on getting married. All those ahadith that we have from our Prophet, an-nikahu sunnati, faman raghiba an sunnati falaysa minni, and all these other riwayat and ahadith in mentioning that man tazawwaja faqad ahraza nisfa deenih, whoever got married indeed secured half their faith, falyattaqillah fi nisfil baqi, fear Allah for the remaining half, and whoever wants to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala should meet him in the state of purity, meaning with their spouse. All of these riwayat are still intact, and this was not the case that Imam is not following the sunnah of Rasul. So what is the reason that person like Masuma Qum remained unmarried until she passed away? And it wasn't the fact that she died in infancy or she died at an early age. If she was born in the year 173, she died in the year 200. So she was 27 years old. And it was customary at that time in Arabia for the girls to be married by the age they're 13 or 14 or 15 years old. So there was plenty of time for her to get married. There are two possible answers that are given, and then the third answer is something which is absolutely wrong. So two answers are something which we can take. The third one we decline. What is the first answer? First answer is that there wasn't any kufr of Bibi Masuma Qum at that time who can marry her because of her status. So amongst the children of Imam Haftum, she had that exalted place like her brother Imam Rada. So because of that, there was no kufr, there was no compatibility as far as anyone else in that time, so she remained unmarried. That's one answer. You can say, well, sure, that is possible. We don't know the history, what was going on. Second answer is that Harun, before the migration of Imam, and in the time of seventh Imam, was keeping a very close eye on our seventh Imam. And there was so much scrutiny and there was so much surveillance that was happening. That is the time when the concept of dissimulation and the concept of taqiyya really played out, right? If you see panning out of the concept of taqiyya, it's in the time of our seventh Imam. That's when really taqiyya came into practice. Prior to that, hardly you will see someone practicing taqiyya, dissimulation, hiding your faith. It is more so in the time of seventh Imam. That's when really taqiyya's practice began. Why so? Because Harun al-Rashid, who was hunting down people who were seen with our seventh Imam or those who were in the company of seventh Imam, they were being persecuted, they were being killed. And because of those atrocities, Imam himself said to the people, stay away from me. I don't want you to be hanging out with me. I don't want you to be in my closer circle, because if you are spotted being in my closer circle, then you could be persecuted as well. If people are staying away from seventh Imam, you think there will be a lot of proposals coming for his daughters? So that is one of the reasons why she remained unmarried. The third answer that sometimes people give is that because she was daughter of Imam, hence she was a Sayyidah, and there was no other Sayyid available, so she did not get married. That is rubbish. That is not the real answer. That is not acceptable, because there are so many examples of the daughters of Ma'sumin marrying those who were not amongst the Sada. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So I mentioned 2 of our attributes, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, inshallah we'll conclude. Shuja'at, bravery. We talk about women today and, their valor, and we speak about the valor and the bravery of those who are present in Karbala, leading by example Janab Zainab and other women of Karbala. The bravery that they showed and the leadership of Bibi Zainab, especially after the events of Karbala, where she is now Sipah Salar, leading the whole caravan from Karbala to Kufa to Sham and back home. So this was something which ran in their blood. It was there. And whenever the time would call for it, they will stand up for it. But they was the same women. The neighbor would not even know that there's a daughter that Ali has for the 40 years of his life. And they did not even know that there was a Zainab that existed in the house of Ali ibn Abi Talib all these years in Medina, until, of course, he sees that Janab Zainab is now marching from city to city. Similar is the case with Masuma Qum. Hardly stepped out of the house, but nonetheless, when it was needed and required, look at the bravery in that time, traveling all that distance just so that she could be with the Imam of the time. And of course, because of her bravery, not just in traveling, that was also a time where there was a lot of ban on narrating ahadith. For someone to have the courage and to relate so many ahadith and the traditions from Ahlul Bayt and leading up to our Prophet, that itself shows the braveness of this great lady. So there's a lesson for our daughters, that they shouldn't feel that it's not their duty to spread Islam. There's daughters like this that are present in the household of Ahlul Bayt that did their part as far as explaining the religion is concerned and expanding it. Therefore, don't think that it is only the duty of the men, that too people who are dressed up like this, and we have nothing to do with spreading this religion. Number 4, Hamiya Vilayat. She was complete and full supporter of the Vilayat of the Imam of her time. First, our 7th Imam, then Imam Ali ibn Musa Rada alayhi salatu wasalam. So we see that the wilayat of Imam is tested in people's heart. And that's where a lot of time people fail to fulfill this. Although Hazrat Masuma died at a very young age of 28, but until her death, she kept on defending her brother as the rightful Imam. Do we have the same courage to stand up for the Imam of our time? Forget the Imam of our time. The issues that Imam of our time would want us to stand up for today, do we have the courage to speak about those? A lot of time, we shy away from many of these things. Things that are happening in Gaza. Now, the chapter has closed on Gaza, sort of. Now it's started on Rafah. And what will be next? And what will be next? And of course, with all the pressure the international community was putting upon it, all that pressure is, thrown out the window by Netanyahu, who addressed it very clearly, saying that regardless of who is standing with us or who's not standing with us, we're going to continue doing what we are doing. So it's sort of like challenging the entire world in the status quo that, we rule the world and we control everything. You can do whatever it is that you want. So if they're able to do this and still Muslimin are shying away from it and they're unable to put their work together to be able to condemn it first and foremost, now I think it has gone beyond condemnation. But again, see where the pressure comes about, right? You just saw in the news the other day that even those 501c3 non-profit organizations, if they are caught condemning Israel or they're caught condemning any of these activities, their 501c3 status could be at stake. So now, standing up here on this mimbar, if I'm speaking about this, and if I say something which is going to be anti-Semitic, according to their perspective, because we don't say anything that is anti-Semitic, but according to their perspective, it is going to be anti-Semitic, then, of course, they can come back to us and they can challenge our 501c3 status and non-for-profit status, because everything is going online. So this is where we see sometimes how we fail, and sometimes there's more courage that is needed. Masuma Qum displayed that she was always hami of wilayat, regardless of how difficult the situations were. And the last thing is the talash and pishtqar farawan, effort and perseverance. Never give up, continue. If you have this will to continue and keep on doing. The perseverance is there. That is something which you find in the kirdar, in the character of Masuma Qum. She reached this status through her own willingness and the tawfiq from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because Imam Musa Kazim had other daughters, but she's the only one known as Karima Ahl Bayt. Right? Imam had other daughters. Did you know about other daughters? I'm sure many of us may not even be able to name other daughters of Imam Musa Kazim. Right? How did she develop this? This is her own willingness, determination, hard work, perseverance, koshish, and tawfiq from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If we just say, well, Allah will give us tawfiq and we'll do this. No, you got to start first for the tawfiq of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to come to you. You can't just wait idly with hands on hands that Allah will give us the tawfiq one day and we'll go ahead and do hajj and we'll go ahead and do ziyarat and we'll go ahead and give this, or we'll go ahead and do this and that. No, tawfiq will happen when you take the first step. Show your willingness, your eagerness, your enthusiasm, and then wait for the tawfiq from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'll conclude with a couple of hadiths in regards to the importance of visitation of Masuma Qum. Just one hadith in this regard is enough from our sixth Imam, Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam. Imam said, remember, there is a haram for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that is the Kaaba. There's a haram for Rasulullah, and that is Madinatul Munawwara. There's a haram for Amirul Mu'mineen, that is in the city of Kufa. And then there's haram for me and my children, and that is in Qum. Imam alayhi salatu wasalam places this place where Masuma Qum was there. And the reason he's calling that to be the haram is because of the wujud. She hasn't been born yet. This is Imam Shishum, sixth Imam, who passed away in the year 148. Masuma Qum will be born in the year 173. This is 25 years prior, at least 25 years prior to her birth. Imam is saying what? He said, let it be known that the haram for me and my children is Qum. Qum is a smaller Kufa for us. Paradise has 8 doors, 3 of them open towards Qum. And then Imam said, why? What is the reason? He said, تُقْبَضُ فِيهَا إِمْرَأَةٌ مِّن وُلْدِي اسْمُهَا فَاطِمَةٌ بِنْتُ مُوسَى تَدْخُلُ بِشَفَاعَتِهَا شِيعَةِ الْجَنَّةِ بِأَجْمَعِهِمْ. Said, a lady from my offspring by the name of Fatima, daughter of Musa, will die in that land, and through her intercession, her followers will enter the paradise. And that is what you recite as far as her ziyarat nama is concerned. When you go for her ziyarat, one of the important lines in the ziyarat nama of Bibi Masuma Qum is, Ya Fatimatu ishfa'ili fil jannah fa inna laki indallahi sha'nun minashan. O Fatima, do our intercession and shafa'at in the day of judgment near Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because you have this sha'an near Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala which no one else has. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the tawfiq to be able to live up to the expectations of Masuma Qum salamullahi alayha. Allah give us the ability to do her ziyarat bima'rifatiha, and also Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestow upon us the shafa'at of Masuma Qum salamullahi alayha. Inna hasan hadith wa ablagh al-mawidha kitabullah a'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim bismillahir rahmanir rahim wal asr innal insana lafi khusr illa alladhina amanu wa amilus salihat wa tawasaw bil haqqi wa tawasaw bis sabr. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحليم الكريم غافر الذنب وقابل التوب وهو الغفور الرحيم سبحان من سبقت رحمته وغضب وبسط اليدين بالرحمة سبحان من لم يكلف نفسا إلا دون وسعها فعن السيئات ولم يجاز بها سبحان من لا يزداد ولا معصي العباد إلا كرما وجودا ولا كثرة الذنوب إلا فهو وصف نشهد أن لا إله إلا هو لطوف على عباده بجوده والأفضل المذنبين بحلمه ونشهد أن محمدا نبيه وحبيبه سيد المرسلين وشفيع المذنبين بعثه رحمة للعالمين ألا قد أمركم الله في محكم كتابه بالصلاة على نبيه وحبيبه فقال تعليما لكم وتشريفا لصفيه إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على سيد المرسلين وشفيع المذنبين نبينا محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وعلى إمام المسلمين وقائد الغر المحجلين أمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب وعلى سيد نساء العالمين وبذة خاتم النبيين سيدتنا فاطمة بنت رسول الله وعلى الحسن المجتبى والحسين الشهيد بكربلاء وعلي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي وعليه الصلاة والسلام. اللهم صل على مولانا صاحب العصر والزمان ماهي آثار البدء والطغيان هادم أبنية الشرك والنفاق حاسد فروع البغي والشقاق صلوات الله وسلامه عليه وعلى آبائه الكرام اتصلت الليالي والأيام. اللهم عجل فرجا وسهل مخرجا واكحل ناظرنا بنظرة منا إليه واجعلنا من المستشهدين بين يديه وتفضل على أمراء المؤمنين بمزيد التوفيقات وازدياد الإقبال وعلو الدرجات. اللهم افعل بنا ما أنت أهله ولا تفعل بنا ما نحن أهله بجاه محمد وآله المعصومين صلوات الله عليهم أجمعين. ممن يذكر فتنفع الذكر أن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله أشهد أن عليا ولي الله أشهد أن عليا حجة الله. حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يسبح لله ما في السماوات وما في الأرض الملك القدوس العزيز الحكيم هو الذي بعث في الأميين رسولا منهم يتلو عليهم آياته ويزكيهم ويعلمهم الكتاب والحكمة وإن كانوا من قبل لفي ضلال مبين وآخرين منهم لما يلحقوا بهم وهو العزيز الحكيم. ذلك فضل الله يؤتيه من يشاء والله ذو الفضل العظيم. مثل الذين حملوا التوراة ثم لم يحملوها كمثل الحمار يحمل أسفارا بئس مثل القوم الذين كذبوا بآيات الله والله لا يهدي القوم الظالمين. قل يا أيها الذين هادوا إن زعمتم أنكم أولياء لله من دون الناس فتمنوا الموت إن كنتم صادقين ولا يتمنونه أبدا بما قدمت أيديهم والله عليم بالظالمين. قل إن الموت الذي تفرون منه فإنه ملاقيكم ثم تردون إلى عالم الغيب والشهادة فينبئكم بما كنتم تعملون. يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا نودي للصلاة من يوم الجمعة فاسعوا إلى ذكر الله وذروا البيع ذلكم خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون. فإذا قضيت الصلاة فانتشروا في الأرض وابتغوا من فضل الله واذكروا الله كثيرا لعلكم تفلحون. وإذا رأوا تجارة أو لهوا انفضوا إليها وتركوك قائمة قل ما عند الله خير من اللهو ومن التجارة والله خير الرازقين. الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. ربنا اغفر لي ولوالدي وللمؤمنين يوم يقوم الحساب. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. رب صل على محمد وآل محمد. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. رب صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. رب صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. بحول الله وقوته يقوم ويقعد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. رب صل على محمد وآل محمد. سمع الله لمن حمد. الله أكبر. ربنا افرغ علينا صبرا وثبت أقدامنا وانصرنا على القوم الكافرين بجاه محمد وآله الطاهرين. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. رب صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. يا لطيف ارحم عبدك الضعيف. الله أكبر. الحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر.
إن الله ملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. تسبيح جناب فاطمة الزهراء سلام الله عليها. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم واستغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم الرحمن الرحيم ذو الجلال والإكرام وأتوب إليه. All of us together. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم كن لوليك الحجة لابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرزك توعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Let us recognize the sponsors for today's Jummah lunch. It is Brother Naseem Hamid and his family. Please recite Surah Fatiha for their deceased relatives as well as your Surah Fatiha. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم. Quick announcements, inshallah. We have a few programs. Tonight we will have the Quran Academy and Futsal program for children ages 6 to 12, starting at 7. Inshallah, concluding with namaz, and then children will go and play at the Sadiq School gym. That happens every Friday night, so you don't need to inquire about it or register. Just bring your children. If they're between ages 6 and 12, they can take part in it. Amongst the upcoming programs, inshallah, next Saturday, we will be celebrating the prosperous birth of our 8th Imam, Imam Ali ibn Mawsur alayhi salatu wasalam. That'll be Saturday, May 18th. Before Maghrib, inshallah, the program will start. The details will go out in the email. The guest speaker for that program, inshallah, will be Syed Haider Bahrul Ulum. Also, just a reminder that this is Mental Health Awareness Month. 1 in 5 Americans suffer from mental health issues. Please get help if you or anyone in the family is in need of help. Who's suffering from any mental health diseases, reach out. There are a lot of venues that are available for that. Also, we have Sadiq School PTO is selling Mother's Day flowers and samosas with mango juice. Please stop by and support. As always, we look forward to your support for all of these programs. Tomorrow being Saturday, inshallah, we'll have Salatul Fajr at 5 a.m., followed by Quran and inshallah breakfast. Similarly, on Sunday, we'll have Salatul Fajr at 5 a.m., and there will be breakfast will be served inshallah as well. Let us recite Dua Sahat for all of those people who are in need of dua, those who are suffering, struggling, going through a difficult time. All the victims in Gaza and Rafah now and all these other places, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give them quick recovery. Let's recite this ayah karima 5 times together. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء 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 أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه يكشف السوء ويجعلكم خلفاء الأرض أإله مع الله قليلا ما تذكرون. اللهم صل. Let's proceed to Salatul Asr, inshallah. الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله أشهد أن عليا ولي الله أشهد أن عليا حجة الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سمع الله لمن حمد. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. رب ادخلني مدخل صدق وأخرجني مخرج صدق واجعل لي من لدنك سلطانا نصيرا. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سمع الله لمن حمد. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. الحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سمع الله لمن حمد. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. يا لطيف ارحم عبدك الضعيف. الله أكبر. الحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر.
إن الله ملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. تسبيح.